Hi, and welcome to my reflective video on advocacy, activism, and the image of the teacher. Before I begin, I would like to pay my respect to the Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation. I acknowledge your long and continuing relationship with country, recognising that I am a settler here. I pay my respects to elders past and present and honour the stories, complex history, and living culture of Australia's First Peoples. I make a commitment to reconciliation and truth-telling while considering the role I can play toward reparation. During this unit, I have begun to re-examine my image of the teacher, to regard myself beyond the concept of the more knowledgeable other, and reposition myself as a co-constructor of knowledge with children. As identified by Moss, co-constructing involves creating knowledge in relationship with others. 2006, page 36. Therefore, my image of the teacher considers the entanglement of the learner and not just the outcomes of their learning. This teacher is someone who views children as genuinely competent and regards them as powerful citizens with rights and undeniable capabilities. This teacher is someone who values the interrelationship between the human and non-human world, someone who considers the agency of place, materials, and other beings, advocating children's ecological identity and foregrounding Indigenous perspectives. Pello, 2009. This teacher considers theoretical approaches beyond what has historically been accepted to critically reflect on their practice and consider who is advantaged and who is disadvantaged by the actions and decisions they make. To consider alternative narratives away from the dominant discourses, to recognise the multiple ways of being, seeing, and knowing. They listen to the 100 languages of children and recognise the multiple intelligences that we all possess. Edwards et al., 2012. This teacher aims to positively impact on the lives of the children they work with, someone who creates meaningful partnerships with families and the wider community. This teacher contextualises their approaches to ensure that all children's needs are met in ways which best suit them. A teacher who is committed to a positive change and engages in a cycle of critical reflection to build on their knowledge and skills as a professional. The image I hold of the teacher impacts and influences the behaviours and actions I take in relation to advocacy and activism. But what is advocacy and activism in early childhood education? Waniganayaka et al. Explains advocacy and activism as the ethical and professional responsibilities of intentional leaders who can play a critical role in advancing children's rights and social justice agenda. 2012, page 119. An activist and advocate in early childhood education and care gives a voice to the children. They actively listen to children, both their verbal and non-verbal voices, and act on what is in their best interest as urged in the Code of Ethics, Early Childhood Australia 2016. They make decisions which uphold children's rights as outlined in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, UNICEF 2019. Advocacy and activism can be done in subtle ways, such as reconsidering policy and procedure to ensure that children's perspectives are considered, such as how a child has agency around their sleep and rest needs. Or perhaps it could be reflecting on current practice to ensure that all children have equal opportunity to participate in the program. Or speaking out when unethical practice occurs, such as discrimination. Activism and advocacy can also be something which impacts children on a broader scale, such as championing system change for children at a political level, joining the union, participating in protests, or writing to council to urge for more support for vulnerable families and children. Being an activist and advocate in early childhood education is to be a child's champion, to be someone who is always in the child's corner, recognising that even small acts can have significant impact and change a child's trajectory. As quoted by Rita Pearson, every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best they could possibly be. Pearson, 2013. While reflecting on advocacy and activism and my image of the teacher, I consider my philosophy of a leader and how it continues to develop. How, as a teacher, we hold a privileged position where we can make lasting impacts for children and families. How our leadership can support breaking down barriers to promote equality. How early childhood leaders cannot ignore their responsibility of advocacy and activism within their community to enhance the lives of children and families. Ebeck, and Waniganyaki, 2003. As a leader, we can go beyond advocacy and activism for children and instead be activists and advocates with them, to educate children to understand what their rights are and support them to enact on these rights, to raise the profile of early childhood education and care and be an instigator of change. As an early childhood teacher and leader, I will consider how I can be an activist and advocate for and with children while reflecting on my image of the teacher, knowing that this image that I hold will determine the role that I play. Children cannot afford for me to be complacent or ignore this priceless opportunity.